Hello, Julie Barkas here, along with my fantastic co-host, Michael Tasner, and I would like to welcome you to Get Connected. This is a show that's dedicated to helping you increase your levels of success that you're experiencing in your life personally and professionally. Hey, Michael, how's it going?
I'm having a productive week. It's a really busy week, it seems like, but productive. All is well here.
It's flying by for me. I mean, from week to week when we do these shows, I'm like, wow, is it Wednesday already?
Well, I think the other thing that, and you're probably seeing this also, but I think a lot of centers are now realizing, well, something's got to change. And like we've got to start doing something a little bit differently. We've got to change something up or just spice things up a little bit. So we're getting a lot of frantic calls like, hey, like I thought enrollment would be back or staff, so like whatever it is, but we're definitely seeing like that delayed effect. Like 10 minutes before this, I just got off the phone with the center. She doesn't have a location. Well, she has a location. I said, well, when are you opening? In like 6-7 months? And like, no, I'm opening in 3 weeks. And I'm like, oh, how are your pre-enrollments? Well, we don't have any. Like, oh boy, here we go. So a lot of that, but it keeps me on my toes, and it's just fun to do whatever I can and all that good stuff to help. So
awesome. Yeah, we're dealing with a lot of different staff issues right now, different staffing issues about how to get our right people back in place. So, and that's always a fun thing for me. Those are some of the funnest questions that I get to ask. And last night, I actually did a really nice presentation. I thought it was really nice. It was a lot of fun on mastering your mindset so that you can soar during challenging times. And that was a lot of fun for me to be able to do. So
I like it. Are you, and I know, so our topic for today is going to be stories. So we're going to start doing kind of some theme shows where we pick a theme and just look at not just where does it correlate to or where does it kind of go through your marketing, but how does that go through your hiring? How does it go through your branding, your mindset, your personal happiness? So today's theme is stories. So we're going to talk about kind of leveraging stories to build your vision, leveraging stories to enhance your marketing, your branding, to convert more, to bring in better staff that you love. So that's going to be the topic for today. But I'd love to hear if you have any kind of off-the-cuff insights on mindset, because I definitely that's definitely something that I think a lot of centers could use some help on. So what are they? I guess, and I'm trying to think of the right question to ask you, but are they coming to you saying, hey, I mean, my mindset is off, or how do I kind of get back on track? What are you kind of hearing?
Excuse me. Some people know that they have a mindset issue and they know how important mindset is, while others are kind of clueless. They're like, gosh, we're implementing every marketing strategy there is. We're doing everything right with our staff, but we're still not getting the results that we desire. So what I want everybody to know is that your mindset really plays a crucial part in supporting your vision. So I don't get a lot of calls saying, oh, my mindset is out of sync, but they're like, I'm feeling stuck. And if we're feeling stuck, it's because our mindset is in a place where our thoughts are negative, and that's the guiding force. That's the power center that we're operating from. So we really have to pay attention to what thoughts are we dwelling on, because those thoughts that we dwell on make up our beliefs. They make up our feelings. It determines the results that you do or don't get, and it makes up your mindset. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, I just need to be more positive. Well, that's a mindset issue, right? Or we need team members to be more positive. That's a mindset issue. So to me, we always want to look at the mindset piece, because if we don't have the right mindset in place, you're going to get some temporary results, but then you're going to need another strategy. And then you're going to need another strategy and another strategy and another strategy. So I always tell my clients that if we're just searching for strategy and we're not willing to do the personal transformation that's involved, we're always going to be needing another new bright and shiny strategy. So that's why, to me, the mindset work is so important, because sometimes we're implementing a really good strategy, but we're just not supporting it with the right mindset. We shift the mindset, implement the same exact strategy, and we start getting some transformational results. And that's really fun to see.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And as you're talking, I'm kind of hearing how this has, I think, played out for a lot of people that we've either started working with or people that we haven't worked with. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of a center that we just spoke to. My days seem to get jumbled, but either yesterday or today, one of the 2 days. And we were simply looking at kind of where things are at today. So I believe she had 25 enrollments, but she had capacity for 90. Pre-COVID, she was, it's like everyone's saying pre-COVID, my enrollments were here, but she was like 55, 60. So, I mean, obviously much better than where she is today. So there's that gap. So like she's over here, and then there's this widening gap. And we just started talking about it. And I said, well, here's what I'm suggesting. Well, she said 2 things and they were both mindset driven. The first one, I've tried this, it hasn't worked before. That was the first one. And then the second one was, it's too expensive.
Yeah.
I said, okay, so are you treating this as an investment or as well, this is an expense, of course. I mean, but it's just that mindset piece, as you said, of even if I were to bring her on and help her, if I didn't help influence or change her mindset, even though we could try everything in the world, she may not try on her side as well to make it a success. If you already have that mindset that, no, it's not going to work, or no, we've had staff before that are 22 years old and they just want to be on their phones all day. Like it's those
Right.
notions.
Yeah, and I think that's where the philosophy of emptying your cup, whenever you're going to sign on with an expert, whether it's Michael or myself, and when I sign on with coaches, and I know Michael does this too, it's like you just empty your cup and you say, okay, I'm a beginning student again. There's going to be something here that I'm missing, that I'm not doing right, and I want to absorb that piece. But if we close our mind down and say, nope, doing it, done it, hasn't worked, okay, well, then there's going to be no learning opportunity there, and you're not going to really see the opportunity that you could if you said, okay, let me understand, let me see if there's something that I'm missing here. And whenever I'm in a situation and somebody's, it comes to like it being I want to say like a power struggle where somebody's like, oh no, it's this way. And I'm like, oh, well, I really thought it was this way. I'm like, I'm totally open to being wrong. I am so open to being wrong. Show me. And I'll learn something. But I make sure that that's part of my dialogue as I move forward, is I'm open to being wrong, because when I'm wrong, I'll learn something, and I'll probably learn it quicker than when I'm right. But it's about being able to empty the cup and just come at it again. Like, I'm going to find the missing piece here. But when you come at it like, I already know this, I've already done this, we know this, what are you going to show us that's new? There's not a lot that's new under the sun. I mean, there's TikTok, different platforms that come into play, but there's not a lot that's really new. It's about opening your mind so you see the opportunity with what you might already be implementing, or with a tweaking of that idea.
When you say, just for clarity for other people that may have not heard kind of your philosophy of kind of, how are you phrasing it? Opening closing the emptying the cup?
Yeah, coming to the table with like an open cup. Or emptying your cup out. So whenever you go into a training or you speak to your coach, you talk to a consultant about something, you've got to empty your cup and just be like, all right, I'm here with an empty cup and I would love for you to fill it, and let's find the missing pieces. So, but if we have a cup and we're like, oh, it's already packed with all this knowledge and everything that I know and I'm going to tell you about it, it doesn't give us a lot of opportunity to really help you see the potentials for what could change your success. And I once heard a motivational speaker, one of my favorites, Les Brown, say that when you're in the picture, you can't really step back and see the picture. Or when you're in the cereal box, you can't really step back and see the cereal, right? Because you're in there. And, that's really what we do, is we take that step back and look at the picture and say, okay, here's how it could be tweaked a little bit. But, even just to have that open mindset is something that you need to work at. And it's a true gift when you could hone it.
I like it. Huge Les Brown fan.
Yeah, me too. He's one of the first who changed my life way back when.
You gotta be hungry. You
gotta be hungry. Yeah.
I love it.
Mimi Brown's baby boy.
I love it. Yeah, I get to see him in person a few times, and such a great speaker, so polished. And I think it's a good segue into our topic for today, because he leverages stories.
Oh my goodness.
Everything that he does. Everything. And I had one of my favorite stories. So I had to make sure I brought a little prop for today.
Awesome.
Is the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And there's just a lot of things that I like about this book. And when I look at, so I actually have 30 copies right around the corner. And there's not just the core message that really resonates, but it's just one of those books that re-inspires, re-engages, opens your mind a bit, and it's all done through stories. And if I look back at, how did people communicate way back when? It was through stories. If you look at, how you communicate in your daily life when you're sitting around the dinner table or sitting at a holiday at an event, whatever it is, you're talking in stories. Do you remember this? Let me tell you a fun story about what happened, or whatever it is. And if you start to think about that, you find that your life is largely told through stories.
Yeah.
And when I've been looking at just the childcare business in general, and just have been looking at everything that's going on, and I wouldn't say that I finally came to terms with everything, but I finally have realized that we're probably going to be in this for at least for a little while longer, but we're all in this together. So let's figure out, how do we make the best of it? And how do we make sure that my center stands the test of time?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it would be relevant today to really kind of talk about stories and just how you could leverage them, again, not only with your marketing, and then have that kind of branch off and go into your website and branch off into your social media, but also to have this then spiral over to your staff, spiral over to your vision, and just really everywhere in between. So I don't know, Julie, I know you've done a ton of coaching. I love your stuff around mindset and kind of getting unstuck. And I think you definitely need that first before you can really start to tell your story, because correct me if I'm wrong, from what you've seen, I think people get kind of clouded if they, as you said, they've got to get unstuck. Like for me, if I have too much going on or I'm stressed, I can't sit down and think about the vision of where my business is headed. I've got my blinders on, and not in a good way.
Right.
So I don't know if you've seen that, where a center is coming to you and they obviously want to grow, or they want to kind of revise things or whatnot. Do you find that they have the mindset piece has to be first before you can even broach the subject of stories?
I think that they really have to work hand in hand, because there's a lot of people who, what I come across, because we do a lot with stories, because I really think that it's a fantastic engagement tool, whether you're trying to engage clients, whether you want to engage staff. But we have a lot of people who will get stuck thinking, I don't really have a good story to tell, or my story, I don't want to tell it, or whatever it might be. But when you tell a story, and especially if you've got a more challenging story, like we've had clients who have childcare programs because they don't have the ability to have children of their own, and they just love children and want to be around children. So they decided to open up a school. And there's several people who I think of when it comes to that story, and some are like, oh, I don't want to tell that story, because that's saying that there's something wrong with me. But people really connect through your mess, through what you've experienced in your life. So letting yourself be vulnerable and transparent is a mindset shift to say that, with this, I am going to attract the right people. But we mentioned last week that people are looking for connection, especially right now. We are so looking for connection. And to me, there's no stronger way to create that connection than through a story. So yes, mindset piece has to be in there, at least in conjunction with it. But if we're in the wrong mindset, we're going to be like, who's going to care about the story?
No, I love it. I love everything that you're saying, and and everything that you're sharing. So where would you? So let's. I love to use real life examples. So if you've got a center, one of the first questions, actually, no, it's not the first question. It's actually usually one of the last for some reason. I'll say, well, why did you get in the childcare business? So what are some questions that you might throw to an owner to kind of start to pull some of the things out of them? Would you ask them about their vision? Would you ask them about their past? Would you ask them about the type of center they're looking to create? What are some of those questions?
Yeah. So to me, it really just gets down to the why. And what I do is we'll spend about 60 minutes to 90 minutes on the phone with our clients, just talking about their why, digging deeper with their why. And we really get it to the point where either the person's doing this incredible happy dance or they have some tears going on because of how much it means. So a lot of the magic is in getting them reconnected with their story and remembering their why, so that they'll want to impact other people with that. So to me, it's not about a whole series of questions. It's about just digging deeper and peeling back another layer to that story until we get to the real gist of it. Because sometimes people think they have a story, but then once we dig in and we do a deep dive, it's like, oh, wait a second. Here's the real story. Here's the real scoop. And I love what you said. I want to come back to this too, Michael. I love what you said about, when you get together with family members and their stories being shared, people remember those. And it's so true. It's a huge connection. And my late husband was somebody who would tell a lot of stories, and you'd have to sit there and listen to story after story after story after story, and his son would talk about just all the stories and how long, and he would hate them at the time. But then when Tom passed on, one of the things that people miss was, oh my goodness, the stories you could tell, the stories about this and that. So it is something that just really connects people. And my father is big with stories as well, too, just from the history and the life that he's had, coming over here in fourth grade, not being able to speak a word of English, thrown into an English speaking class. And he'll tell these stories about how it was like a 6-year journey for them to get from Lithuania here to America. And, you got the whole room's attention just tuning into that story. So they are powerful and people do remember them. But with our childcare owners, and what you want to do if you're tuning into this is dig deep with your story. So you might have to ask yourself why a couple of different times and just scale it back, peel it back so that you get back connected to this place. And sometimes it's really hard to do that by yourself.
No, it definitely is. One of my favorite exercises that I haven't done in a while, and I think I need to do it. Anytime that I start to feel overwhelmed, which has been this week for sure, I realize that there's just too much in my head. And it's not just like I call like head trash or something, but rather just I'm thinking of too many things. So I can't focus well enough. So I'll do kind of a session with someone on my team where they'll just use one word phrases and they'll trigger me. So they might say hiring. And then I need to do this. I need to do like that. Okay. Finances. And I go through a list of like 100 things and it basically empties my brain. And I would encourage you to do something similar to talking this through with someone. And so I just committed, 2-3 hours ago to write 4 more books. So not through a publisher. So I'll be the publisher, but committed to an editor, a financial commitment to make it happen. Nice. But the model that I'm using, that I have been using for a lot of books and things like that, is to talk. So kind of talk through the book, speak the book. So I'm going to record myself and kind of go through that. And I'll probably do video.
Nice.
And I encourage you to do something similar when you're having these interviews with someone, whether it's a family member, a spouse, someone on your staff, whatever it is, to just start to kind of go through the process of those trigger questions. And I know you mentioned that it's not necessarily a series of questions, and I agree to a point, but I think that if you have some trigger phrases, like, tell me about what was your vision? Like, what's your vision for this? And you don't say anything else, you pause and you just let them talk and you record it. What do you like? How do you see this in the next couple of years? Why did you get into this?
Yeah.
And you ask the question and then you pause. And that's one of my favorite ways to kind of start the process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's gonna, and one of my favorite ways is to go with the why question. But you know what I want to do is my goal is to get them to feel, is to feel that feeling that they felt. So we try to really connect people back to that place. And I love the questions that you're asking and the approach. But you could also think about when you first opened the doors to get into your center, and it was that first day. How did you feel? You know, what was going on through your mind? What was it that you sat down that evening at dinner and talked about? So I really try to bring people back to that feeling place so that we can reconnect them. Because I tell you what, and this is really important if you're tuning in, write this down. If you don't connect with your vision and you don't connect with your story, nobody else will. Nobody else will. They will not connect with your program if you are not connected yourself. And a lot of owners who I speak with are disconnected from their own story. They're disconnected from their own vision, but yet they hope they attract a bunch of dreamy people. But if we're emotionally disconnected, we're not going to. It's going to be a struggle. Is it possible? Can we do it? Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be a struggle.
So that's a really interesting point. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. That, and I think about that similar to when I'm talking about, fix my microphone a little bit here, when I'm thinking about core values. And I know I've mentioned in one of the previous episodes when I felt like I had a culture that was by default rather than by design. And that was because the core values that we had were forced. Like I didn't feel the core values. They were things like make a difference. Okay. Like it just didn't, there was no feeling to it. So love your thought around feeling.
Yeah. And I show, there's a video, I think I've got it posted on my LinkedIn page, where I'm actually working with a team and we are bringing the vision and the story and the values to life. And this team walked in kind of like, oh God, what am I in for? I have to give up a couple days here. But 3 hours into the program, they were cheering, they were on fire. And I've got a video that just captures the spirit of it all. I'm real amateur like video that I just captured with my cell phone, but they were just really into the spirit. And to me, that was like magic to think like, oh, here's a group of, people who have lost their connection, lost their passion a little bit. And we get them in a group and we focus on story, bring that to life. And so everybody's like, they're jazzed up and they're a part of it and they're feeling different. And that's very powerful. So yeah, but core values, man, you could weave those babies into your story and it could all become a part of it. Deidre, I worked with her. She's the one who talked about blueberry muffins, having those for parents, some fresh baked muffins, but she tells a story about her grandmother, and I believe it was a plum tree, and how she would go to her grandmother's and the best plums were at the very top of the tree, and her grandmother would say, you have to reach higher, reach higher, reach higher. So we repeated that throughout the story, but one of the core values became reach higher, and that was intertwined in the story.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty brilliant.
So I had a few other notes, I guess, for people to consider. It's somewhat basic, but I think it also will prompt you a little bit. So when I'm approaching stories, I personally am usually, selfishly speaking, I'm approaching them for rewriting the website, rewriting email follow-ups, coming up with digital download assets. So all these centers that have a little thing that says, give us your email for a newsletter. A, you probably don't even have a newsletter, but B, why do they want your newsletter? So they're much more interested in the 7 keys to raising effective kids or something like that, or 7 secrets to, staying healthy during uncertain time, whatever it is. It kind of fits with your brand dependent. But there were 2 things that I wanted you to think about. So the first one is I want you to think about the families, and I want you to think about the question of what do they want? What do they want? So, for example, and you want to be writing it and speaking it in the zone of like you want a safe and affordable place that you can send your kids. You want them to thrive as young child or children and to become somebody great. So start to think about what are the things that the families that you're looking to attract really want. And these are, again, they're normally, they're not, well, they just want, I don't know, a place to drop their kids. Like they're normally a lot more thought out, and things like that. I mean, they want to be a part of the community at your center, for example. They want to have a connection with the pre-K teacher to be able to see the movement and the progress. They want their children to come out and be bilingual. I mean, what are those different things that they want? And then with that, you want to match the wants to problems. So there usually are a couple of different types of problems. So there's external problems. So what are some of the things that are kind of going on in the external environment? But the ones that really tend to move somebody as you're telling the story and kind of going through the process are internal things. So like, what are they afraid of? What are they worrying about? So are they afraid that sending their kids to preschool for childcare, that they're going to miss out on all those micro life moments? Like what is making them scared?
Right.
And then from there, it's just looking at kind of the psychological or physiological, of like, what are you going to stand for? So example, like every child deserves quality education, for example. So you want to start to think about in terms of wants, and then starting to match those with some problems. And hopefully that'll start to help trigger some different things that you can do from a storytelling standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. And excuse me, the more that you can connect, the story to the pain points that parents are feeling, that becomes incredibly powerful, because then they're feeling like, oh, wait a second, here's a person who really understands how I'm feeling right now. And it might be a fear of letting go, right? Letting go of their child, trusting their child. Maybe there's something that's in your story that's woven around that. And I think that's absolutely incredible.
Love it.
And you talked about website presence too, and putting your story on the web. And I remember a chain of childcare programs, and I forgot what chain it was, but it was a small chain. I don't know if they had like 6 to 10 centers, and they had like a story theme on each one of their franchise sites. And basically it was the About Us page, or the About Us, or About Me. And on that page, it was the love story. So every franchise you went to under this chain, they were telling the love story of, typically it was how they met their significant other. And they told the story, which was really cool, because everybody loves love, right? I mean, you love love, you love a good love story, especially women who are our customers in the childcare industry. But it was just all about how they met, how they fell in love, how they had their babies. It was their own story, and it was just beautiful, and it was brilliant.
Oh, that's really interesting. So I think the task that we're, I guess, throwing to you is to just start to put it to paper. And you can do that through different prompts. You can talk about pulling out obviously different words and phrases that you can actually feel, as Julie said. You can look at putting yourself in the parent's shoes. But a lot of times I'm looking to kind of mesh. Just trying to get comfortable here. Never comfortable. My wife just told me to buy a new chair, so I think I need to, I don't know.
To listen.
Yeah, I think I got to listen and buy a new chair, and then I could never like the camera. It looks tilted, and that's okay. It's
yeah.
But
that's okay. We're doing it. We're getting it.
Yeah, that's
the message, okay. Michael. It's the message.
Exactly. Now I already lost my chain of thought where I was headed with that. So the story piece is just, I want you to get something to paper. And that to me is kind of one of the step ones of, once you have that to paper, you want to start to look at all the different places that you could apply your story. where do you want to see your story start to resonate? And that's a lot of the stuff that Julie and I have talked about in the past, of that vision for your business, that dreamy future of kind of how you want things to go. It should spill over on your website, as I mentioned. It should spill over in your emails and things like that. But I think far too often I read these wonderful, amazing stories, and then I say, well, where can I see that? Well, that's an internal document. What do you mean?
Right.
Document? Like, it's not in their hiring process. So I'd love to get your input on how they could leverage that in the hiring process. But it's not there. It's if they're looking to acquire another center, which I'm seeing a lot of at this very moment in time, of looking at acquisitions. Like, well, did you share your story? Well, no, we just kind of gave them the numbers. Well, then you're again competing. There's nothing that is then completely different and unique about you and your center. And as we've said in the past, a lot of these things, they don't have to be big, miraculous things. I mean, maybe we work with a lot of investors. I mean, it's a lot of our clients that they know the childcare industry is a great industry to be in. So you might not have this huge glamorous story, because usually a glamorous story isn't, I see childcare as a booming market and I wanted to invest and make money. That usually isn't the best story.
Right.
But if you start to dig deeper, as Julie said, and you peel off the layers, you can usually start to uncover something. So usually you don't just go into a type of business because it seems like it might be fun or lucrative.
Or make some money. And even if you did go into the business because you thought, oh, childcare, it's going to be an always thing, it's a great investment, there's still a story that you can get to. There just is. So I really encourage everybody to think about it and think about the story. And I'm currently working with a client, and they have a powerful, crazy, amazing story. And they had a consultant come in, and the consultant kind of put everything to do with the story away, saying it has nothing to do with anything. And now that I'm working with this client, we're in the process of bringing things back out. The owner is going through a second round of telling his story to his staff, to really engage them and to propel them forward into an amazing year. So, even to me, it's like things around your center that are a reflection of your story are powerful. Your logo could be born from your story. Different things you have hung up in your office could be a reflection of your story. And I have one client, Selvi, who came over here, I believe from, India? But, we worked on her story many, many moons ago. But part of her story was that her father was this incredibly inspirational person to her. And he always quoted, JFK and Martin Luther King and all these different people. So what she decided to do was to take the entranceway of her school and put up all these quotes that touched her heart and soul for so many years, and put them up in the hallways along with a picture of that influential person. So we took her story and we brought it to life with the tangible items that she was able to incorporate. And I think that's so important when you tell your story. It could be, there should be representations of that story and your why all over the place.
No, I like that a lot. Yeah, the university that I went to, they had wonderful quotes and things like that all over the place. And it just starts to show who you're about.
Yeah.
And it's that whole Simon Sinek video of people buy why you do it, not what you do. There's a lot of childcare. I mean, I have not found, rarely, I'll say rarely, have I found a city that doesn't have other childcare centers. So, and it's obviously there's differences between Montessori, non-Montessori, classroom. So there's the variances. So I understand that. But when it comes down to it, I mean, it's childcare, it's preschool. So what are you going to do to really just start to differentiate yourself? And stories are just the perfect way to, again, as I've harped on it many times in this call on the website, but integrate it into your tours.
Yes.
So I used to be, way back when, one of my first, I guess, quote unquote jobs was as a tour guide for the university.
Ooh,
And
love it.
the whole thing was stories. We would tell the story of, and it's funny because this is the first time that I've rethought of this until now. But as I'm thinking about it, and the tours that I did, everything was a story.
Mm,
We would tell the story of the founder of the school, Lydia Moss Bradley. I went to Bradley University
yes.
in Peoria, Illinois. We would tell the story about the construction of the new science wing and all the neat things and plants and things that I had no clue about that were on top. We would talk about the entrepreneurship program and some of the people that provided money to fund it.
Mhm.
The whole thing was storytelling, and just think about how much more engaging that's going to be in your tour than you just saying, here's our infant room. Okay, it looks
Yeah.
like the infants are sleeping. Here's our toddler room, for example. Here's the security cameras.
Yeah.
Imagine the stories that you could tell.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. And once you're really into a story of something, there's this like contagious enthusiasm that spreads, right? So even if it's like, okay, this is the kind of crayon we use, or this is the kind of diaper we use, what's the story behind those diapers? And you can incorporate even those stories into your new staff orientation. And I think your story can be woven into every aspect from your handbooks to your policies and procedures, right? It shouldn't just be like, oh, here's our story and we're so fun and that's one of our core values. And then here's our policy and procedure book. And now we're going to police the heck out of you. It should be a continuation of the story, like Forrest Gump. I mean, this is like a perfect example, right? He brought his mother into the story all the time. My mama always said life is like a box of chocolates, right? And her whole thing is woven into the whole story, and it's brilliant because it's his story, but in there is all these different stories that are just kind of the fabric of who his mom is. And some of you I know have multi-generation childcare programs where you're not the first generation. It's it was your mother's, it was your grandmother's, or it was your brother's, or it was this. So there's lots of stories there that can be woven into the fabric.
Oh, definitely. I just had a lovely call earlier today with a Montessori school. And she actually, I think like that's the name of her center, Montessori school. I'm like that's not very creative, but so I think I offended her already. But she goes, well, wait a second. I'm like, okay. And she said, well, let me tell you the story of why I picked that name. And like she knew everything about Marie Montessori and not just the stuff that's easily read, but like she knew like everything.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, that's why like I wanted to name the business the Montessori School. And I believe she's out Arizona, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, that's who we are. And like it was just a compelling story, because otherwise I would have just thought, okay, you're just another Montessori school that's like just using the name Montessori.
Yeah.
But she had the whole, and she's like, I've been doing this for 35 years. Like, you have been doing it? And she's like, yeah. And so she was like 68 or something like, but she just,
oh my goodness.
It just, I don't know. She just had everything there, everything to tell the story, to make things happen, and to kind of move the needle. So if we've looked at it, I mean, if you start to just unpack everything that we just shared, I mean, it's just really powerful to get your stories together, to get them kind of pen to paper.
Yeah.
So you can kind of take a step back. And as Julie said, you can then start to see where you can weave them in from tours, website, handbooks, hiring. I mean, all those things.
And Michael, you shared a brilliant example of a story, Maria Montessori. There are so many childcare owners that I've spoke with who opened their center because they heard Maria Montessori on video, not even in person, on video, sharing her story. And because of that video that they saw, they were inspired to open up their own Montessori program. So I want you to think about how incredibly powerful that is. One person makes a video at one point in time, and because of it, so many other people open up doors to their childcare programs or to their Montessori programs.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's super huge. And I also think, another cool thing when you look at stories, I even think of people like Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken, and man, do I think they butchered his story to all heck. But now, and I don't know if you saw the train of commercials that they were doing with.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But they had this guy playing Colonel Sanders, this woman playing Colonel Sanders. They had all these weird characters coming and trying to play him. And at the time, I was getting a little frustrated because I'm like, you know what? They've got such a powerful story. All they have to do is go to the roots, tell his story, and let people reconnect with that. And they've got a powerful marketing campaign. And so now finally, I just caught a KFC commercial the other day, and now they're going back to telling the story. I'm like, okay, now they're getting it back. So I was really happy to see that. But, there are so many powerful stories out there, and don't underestimate the power of yours.
I love it. So I know that we're going to wrap a little bit early today, but I wanted to, as always, I want people, if they need any support from Julie or myself, I want to put up Julie's URL. And I think what would be good for today is her Getting Unstuck call, among many other things.
Yes.
As we talked about, I started the call with talking about mindset, largely because that's what I'm hearing and feeling almost every day. Also, there's definitely some mindset issues. So Julie's site is childcarebusinesssuccess.com. She'll give you a free Getting Unstuck call.
Yes.
But she just has a lot of amazing ways that she can work with you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Michael.
Well, of course. And then mine is just localchildcaremarketing.com. Ours is just called an enrollment acceleration call. We focus on driving revenue, and that's typically kind of where we start.
Yeah, so make sure that you follow Michael as well on his page here on Facebook, and as well as mine at Childcare Business Success. And you are Local Childcare Marketing on Facebook?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Definitely.
So follow Michael there as well. And yeah, we'd love to help you out. And we hope you got some benefit from the show today.
Yeah, our first theme on stories. And then as if you haven't read the Places You Will Go, just such a great book. And I gift this to all my clients. I send messages in there kind of about my story and why I think the book will help them with their story. So appreciate everyone tuning in as always, and for throwing some questions. Make sure you like, share, comment, and all that good stuff. And we will be back here next week.
Yeah, and get started with your story. Don't wait. Get it down,
Love
like Michael said. Start writing.
Love it. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Yeah, happy Wednesday, everyone. We'll see you soon.